You are Black in the Green Room with me, your host, Keith Underwood. And this is your spot for real talk about entertainment with entertainers, creatives, and showbiz professionals. My guest today is an actor, writer, producer, and businessman. Malik Yoba is an accomplished actor. You know him from everything like New York Undercover, also Alphas, Empire, Why'd I Get Married? And I mean, I could just sit here all day and list off all his credits. So Malik Yoba, welcome to the room, man.
Good to see you, brother. You see, I got a green shirt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. There we go.
Green room.
That's right. And you're black and green. So
There you go.
How you been, man? What's been happening?
Just left a spin class, which
Okay.
I'm really good about because I used to go to Soul Cycle 4 days a week for 8 years up until the pandemic, and I had not been back since March 6th, 2020. So I just finished my third class this week, which I'm very happy. And I can still feel the endorphins, even though the class ended like 2 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm feeling refreshed, tackling the day. I got a lot to do.
Yes.
Every day, yeah. But
what was your first day like back at spin class, man, after all this time?
Because
that's not no joke.
Well, here's the thing, which I appreciate about that is I went Monday night, took a 6:30 class, then I went again Wednesday, and then today, Friday. So Monday, I was reminded on why I loved it so much, why I went almost like at least probably 3-4 days a week easily for many, many years. And then was reminded of the workout that it is, right? But also just how you feel afterwards. And, I was thinking about it today when I finished class, just how when you do something for a long time, you can take it for granted, even though you know it has benefit.
Yes.
But you just in the rhythm of your life, and then you stop and then you return to it, you're like, yo, damn, like I can't do this again. Take such a long break. And I feel that about a few things, I feel that about golf. If I stop playing golf, I feel that about music when I'm not playing a lot, playing guitar or singing. And there's certain things that you do that, you return, you're like, what's wrong with me? I need to stay on this, but it's all good. I'm here now.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you were born in New York, you were raised in New York, and you reside in New York. Man, New Yorkers get a big bad rap, for having attitudes, man, but every New Yorker I know, man, is cool as hell. So, what do you have to say to that? What do you say about New Yorkers?
I think it's both. I think we got attitudes and we are rude. But I mean, people also come from all over the world, right? So it's not like, there's a lot of immigrants here. People bring bad habits, particularly on the road, driving. People are impatient.
Yeah.
But I love the city. It's changed a lot since COVID, for sure.
Yes.
But it still feeds my soul in the way that I need to be fed. So I still can enjoy it, but I get out a lot. Like I travel a lot, so it still works,
Yeah, man. I love New York as well, but I've got this huge rat phobia, man. And so ever since COVID, they've been talking about you guys have had this rat demic. Is that true, man? Are they just over exaggerating?
Well, I did see at least 3 rats last night. But hey, they were here before we got here, so
we're the pests.
Yeah, dude, they're gonna be here. So it's definitely, I don't know if it's more, but they out there. They outside.
They out there posted up. So yeah. So man, what else have you been doing for fun before we get to the business?
Well, business is fun, man. I mean, I don't look at it like people ask that question, but to me, it's just, look, man, when you get to wake up every day and go after what you really want to do, and I mean, there are things you have to do, obviously, just the administration of life, and whether it's, whatever, paperwork, pay taxes, whatever. But in terms of like every day, going after the things that you want to do, and seeing those things, you building, and you see those things manifest. That's fun,
Yeah.
Yes, I was on a cruise last week, on the Welcome to Jamrock Reggae cruise.
Okay.
That was a good time.
That's fun.
But even while I was on the boat, I was still working.
Still hustling.
At least an hour or two a day to get some work in. You know what I mean? But I mean, you're building the life you want.
That's right.
So that's fun to say, here's an idea, and then to see it manifest, and then the next one. And I'm busier now than I've ever been. So
love it, man. Love it. Yeah. So, man, let's talk about this, this acting thing. How did you kind of make your way into acting, being a brother from the Bronx? What was your calling?
I mean, the long story short is I grew up doing theater. So kid in New York, I was definitely in love with theater as a kid. Went to the theater, was in drama program, studied privately as a teenager, worked at Negro Ensemble Company, watched people like Felicia Rashad and Sam Jackson and Angela Bassett and, Adolph Caesar and Charles Fuller and, so many people as a kid, seeing them live on stage. I was an usher at the theater, and I was also selling subscriptions. So just being steeped in theater as a kid.
Yeah. Man, how did you make that transition from being an usher then to actually being on stage?
Well, even when I was an usher, I was in school. I was an usher at 16 years old. I was still in high school. So I was still in the drama program at school. So I was still doing theater. And, those days of just the innocence of, I just want to perform. You're not thinking about the business. You don't know anything about the business. You just see people bringing characters to life, and that was exciting for me. So it was that. And then, long story short, I'd find out about auditions just word of mouth in the streets of New York. And then I would go on auditions, and a lot I didn't get, like Fame, the TV show, and Fresh Prince. I actually auditioned for the role of Carlton.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What did that audition look like, Malik?
Well, the funny thing is, I remember they described the guy as preppy from Philly, and he walked into the scene. He had a Philly cheesesteak. So I had this like seersucker suit, blue, light blue, white, like kind of pinstripe. And I remember going to a deli and getting like a brown paper bag with like, and then just put a bunch of grease in it and like, I don't know, some napkins or something to look like I had a sandwich in it. And so I came in with wardrobe and props. And Alfonso Ribeiro got it. God damn it. But I don't think there could have been a better Carlton than him.
Yeah, no, he did a great job with the role. And then what about Fame? Which role were you auditioning for in Fame? And then your future screen partner actually ended up being in Fame.
Yeah. It was just an open call.
Yes.
So I had my little monologue and a song, and it was a cattle call to hundreds of people. And they probably brought us in, I don't know, 30, 50 at a time. A big circle in the room, and they looked around and chose 2 or 3 people and said, the rest of y'all can get the hell out of here. And I was part of the get the hell out of here crowd.
Was it like that, Malik? Really?
Oh, 1,000%. They didn't say that, they didn't use that language, but they literally, the guy stood in the middle of the room, and we had been standing outside for hours. I think the audition was sometime in the winter. They were building the Marriott Marquis Hotel. And I remember standing in the street while they were spraying the insulation on the I-beams, and it's raining down on us as we're standing in the street. And we finally get called in the room, and I got my song, I got my monologue, and I'm ready.
Yes.
Dude stands in the middle of the room, looks around, says, you, and you, the rest of y'all can leave. He was going strictly off of some visual.
Right. Some
And
aesthetic that he wanted.
Yeah, that was the end of it for me.
Yeah. So, man, what should like up and coming actors understand from an experience like you had when it comes to auditioning? You know, that we see you now, but we don't understand all the hard work you put in to get here.
Well, I honestly can't say that for me, there was a whole lot of hard work to get there. I mean, because I wasn't pressed. I wasn't that dude who was just, you know, studying and going auditions and fighting to get an agent. I was very hands off. Like, all right, if I hear things, I'll go, but I'm not going to stress out just to be seen. I had a lot of friends that did that, and some of them became, you know, successful at it, but that wasn't my energy. Or, you know, I was much more passionate about pursuing my music, because I felt with music, you can control it.
Yes.
I can perform anywhere. I can pick my guitar up and sing in the subway or do an open mic somewhere. You know, acting, it's a lot harder unless you're in a production or you put a production together. However, now, like, look at the kids that put the new Fresh Prince together, right? They shot on their own. Issa Rae, Awkward Black Girl, put it on YouTube. So now, you literally can create any content you want. People do it all day long. They got their skits on Instagram, on TikTok. So it's a whole different ballgame in terms of creating content, building an audience. And it's really up to the individual to decide how far they want to go. But one thing is clear, and I think the SAG strike proved it, and the writer's strike for a lot of people, you got to have your own shit.
Yes.
Sitting around and just, you know, saying, hey, treat me better, pay me more for your IP.
Yes.
You know, that's something to consider. You know, I think that, you know, and we're storytellers, right? And you can tell the story through understanding marketing. You're telling the story when you're out there raising money from some finance source. You're telling the story when you're writing. You're telling the story if you're directing. So I think it's important to learn the craft. But I think that if you love storytelling, you might want to do yourself a favor and look at it in its totality. A lot of times people say, well, I'm not really a writer, I'm not this. Well, you know, no writer is a writer until they write.
That's right. Absolutely.
So you can develop that discipline over time. You don't have to just be so fixated on what you don't think you're capable of in the moment.
Right. And man, why is that especially creating? Why is that especially important for Black folks?
You know, I mean, look, my father always said, build your own generator so when they turn off the power, you still have lights.
Love that.
So I live by that.
Yeah.
So I live by that. That's tattooed on my arm. And so I think, you know, I happen to be a Black folk. And so I was raised with that value. But I think that's really it. I think that, you know, I mean, we could marginalize ourselves, right, by saying, well, because I'm Black, I have to do. But I just think that as a person, you should be about, how do I maximize my time here? And we, you know, incidentally, we're Black, and folks are going to do the bullshit anyway.
Yeah.
I don't really look at it like, oh, because I'm Black, I have to do X, Y, Z. You know, for the most part, there are times when, like with my real estate development company, right, we have 3 different verticals: the real estate development itself, education programs, and media. So just yesterday, there was an article that the Navy Credit Union, the largest credit union in the country, denied like 50% of Black loans.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a legacy in housing, right? As a, for instance, where we know historically there was laws, federal laws put in place We couldn't live in certain areas. We couldn't buy property. We couldn't become agents. So all these obstacles. So yes, when you're Black, there's going to be obstacles, whether it's federal law or someone's own bias, right? And so there are times when you have to do things specifically for Black people. And with that in mind, like for me, whether you're developing in a community, right? When you think about housing, you think about where you want to develop, I do think about those things, right? Here's a community that needs housing. We need housing, across America, like 7 million units or something like that.
Absolutely.
So housing is an issue for everybody, but so whether it's the housing piece, whether it's the education piece, I'm determined to make sure that our people have this information, right? And then on the media side of it all, it's the same thing, right? Whether it's our digital platform that's coming live or print stuff or scripted or unscripted, there are things that are specific to, I want y'all to know this shit, because too many of us just walk around oblivious to the powers that be and the forces that are at play that impact our lives every day. But waking up every day is me, just going through my life, or, I'm not necessarily always thinking about it through the lens of my skin color.
Right.
I'm thinking things through the lens of my purpose.
Right. So it's
regardless of regardless of what you look like, what's for you ain't gonna go past you.
That's right.
Stay focused on that versus, oh man, I can't do, because you know how they are. They're gonna try to. There's a lot of people that move in the world like that really are already set themselves up because they're assuming that somebody's not gonna do something because of what you look like, right? And that may be true that somebody's not gonna do something, but it shouldn't stop us, right? And it's
right.
It's exhausting,
especially from making the effort.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's exhausting, but I think that it's just how we frame things, not to be naive, but to also not be, encumbered mentally, right? Let the people do what they're gonna do anyway, but don't set yourself up like, man. So at least that's how I look at it.
Yeah. Man, what would you consider to be your big break? Because it seems like in the beginning, when you became a public figure, that a lot of things were coming your way that we saw. But what would you say was your big break in Hollywood or in entertainment?
I mean, so I, because it breaks, it's when you do this, I've been in the game 30 years, right? So a big break is relative. When was my first feature film with a studio? 1993. Although we screen tested in 1991, but the movie got dropped and then picked up again, and that was Cool Runnings. My first series, New York Undercover, in 1994, right? But then there are breaks, I mean,
I like that, Malik. Stay there for a second. When I like how you said that. There's Cool Runnings, right? There's New York Undercover, but then you said there's some breaks. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, look, at the end of the day, even if you're a director or writer, right, or producer even, I just think that, guy said to me, I'm leaving spin class today. He's like, man, I'm a fan. You're like, why'd you stop in the business? I'm like, bro, I ain't stopped. Like, most people are walking down the street looking at your IMDb. Look at my IMDb. There's a lot of credits on there.
Right.
And, so his perception, because he didn't see it, is, oh, I haven't seen you, so you must not be doing your thing. And so that's always a funny thing that people do. And I don't think they realize it. It's just they're only seeing things through the lens of their experience.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I've never been one to wait around for someone to give me a shot. Like every day, like I'm making money doing my thing, whether people see me on television or not, or on film or not. And that's the thing. Like people assume, well, what you doing? Like, no, bro. And especially when you make money at the level that you could make money doing film and television at a high level, listen, I ain't got to tell everybody everything.
Yes.
I'm out here getting it. And
That's
I'm doing
right.
what I'm putting the work in, right?
Yes.
I'm creating that. That is not me waiting on someone to say, I'm hiring you to be a part of my dream.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I've got things I'm producing. I've got things that, you know, I'm directing. I got things, I've got real estate deal. So it's not, so when you asked about the big break, I feel like I haven't even had a big break yet.
Yeah.
Like, what is a big break? Like, I get it, but
yes,
but it's still temporal, right? It's like, so you get it, and then that break is, then you still, it's a series of breaks. Like, I'm looking at my man right now, Blitz, right? The ambassador who just directed Color Purple. I'm so happy for that dude.
yes, absolutely.
I sat with him probably close to 10 years ago when he had a little sizzle reel that he did for his film, The Burial of Kojo. And if you've never seen it, it's a beautiful film.
Yeah.
And then I remember when he got Black is King with Beyonce, and now he got this. And I'm really happy for him, right? Because this is his big break.
Right.
But his little film was his big break too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that's the one that got Ava DuVernay's attention.
It was the catalyst.
Right. And so now The Color Purple will open up some other doors, and then hopefully more doors will continue to open. But the thing about the breaks, because the first, I'd say 8 years of my career felt like I was just on a rocket ship that took off and I had no control. And I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I didn't like, because things are coming at you. People are making offers, blah, blah, blah. You the hot new thing, blah, 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 blah. But the nature of the business is always who's the next hot big thing, right? So if you aren't in the driver's seat of your own experience, then you're always going to just be subjected to other people's ideas on how they see you. Oh, you're the guy that does that thing, so let's offer more of this. Nah, I want to do this little comedy over here, or this, you know, prestige piece here, or some, you know, whatever it might be. If you're just talent, you're always going to be subjected to other people's ideas of who you are and how they want to see you.
Yeah.
And that's never sat well with me.
Yeah. So brother, you know, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now. How did the vision come about for it, and tell me a little bit about it?
So Yoba Development, as you can see, this is actually my company sweatshirt.
Mail me one, brother.
Yeah, these are special editions. I got to print. But so I growing up in the South Bronx and in Harlem in the 80s, when it was all burnt out, cracked out, I always dreamt about becoming a billionaire so I could fix shit. So I wanted to put buildings, and I love architecture and interior design, and I always wanted to just build nice spaces. And then in 2007, I got an opportunity to reconnect with a brother named Dan Bythewood. His cousin Reggie Bythewood introduced me to him on the set of New York Undercover, and Dan became a developer. Dan invited me to participate in the deal he had in Baltimore, which is a ground-up development. Currently, there's 262 units that have been built over the last few years. And so from 2007-8 up until 2018, I was, you know, and I'm still part of that deal, but what I would call myself was like a 10-year apprentice with these cats, right? Learning the business of development, which is a never-ending journey of education.
Right. So this is not new. This has been an ongoing process.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's been a long time, over, you know, almost 2 decades at this point. And then I knew that I wanted to start my own company at some point. And so I started Yoba Development in 2017, but I didn't really do anything with it. But I, you know, got this logo done and starting on the website and just kind of starting to put some pieces in place. And then in 2018, I was shooting a show called God Friended Me, and I was playing a developer. And we were shooting at Steiner Studios here in Brooklyn. Across the street, a friend of mine was developing entire city block down the street of the housing projects. And I thought, how many people walk from the projects past film sets or construction sites and have no idea about the business behind what they see on the surface. And so it was literally in a moment of while shooting, I said, you know, I want to bring three of my passions together: real estate, filmmaking, and young people. And I shared that idea with a woman who's now my chief of staff. 2 days later, she gave me a deck. It said, I Build New York. And she had articulated my vision on how we're going to create access to the process for young people of color that are going to inherit a city that they don't build. And then I took that idea to the developer friend that was doing the city block, and he's happens to be a third generation developer, billionaire, who is one of those people who, you know, there's a lot of those kind of folk who just grow up in the business and don't always recognize their privilege. He happens to be a little bit more tapped in. And so he said, you know, we've been trying to figure out how to bring more diversity into this business. And I said, I want to use filmmaking to do it, because I want to tell these stories of these people that I'm meeting in this space that I think people should know about. And so that became, so when he said that, he's like, I'll fund it. And I decided that I was going to shoot a documentary, which I did in 2019. And I took 7 young people of color on a 6-week journey across the state of New York.
What age range?
The youngest was, at the time, 18.
It's beautiful.
I'd known him since he was like 16.
Yes.
So I'd been like a mentor to him. And the oldest was 38.
Wow.
But most of them were in their early 20s, 21, 22, 25, that kind of thing. And then that shoot became something called the Real Estate Mixtape, which is a 10-part doc series that follows my journey pursuing my first development deal in New York. And that doc series then became the basis of education programs. So we just launched last semester the first real estate development curriculum for high school students in New York. We ran it as an after-school program. One of those kids, we got a few scholarships and a couple internships, but one of the kids did a paid internship last summer, and then he got hired by the company, and now he's in the union, and they're going to pay for him to go to school. He's 19 years old. He just turned 19. So his life and all, he knew he wanted to be in real estate, but he didn't know anything about operations, right? Building engineers. So that was his internship. And so now he's, you know, over the moon that he literally in less than 8 months got a chance to go from just dreaming about it to literally being in the business now. And so, as I said, the vision was those 3 passions, and now they're actualized, right? So there's actual real estate deals, working on a big development project in Augusta. There's some stuff in Chicago, Baltimore, here in New York.
So it's not just specific to New York. You're going nationwide.
Oh, I've been globally. Like, yes. I mean, I'm going to South Africa in February to, I'm actually going for the Joburg Film Festival, but I'm also going to be at the Joburg University with the School of Architecture there. I was just at FAMU doing stuff with Howard. So yeah, I'm doing stuff nationally. So a few partnerships with some national organizations, but I've been like, for the last actually 2 years now, I've been going around the country screening my doc, and then that creates opportunities for development projects, education programs, and it also creates opportunities to create more media.
That's right.
seeing in the next year.
Yeah, explain to me that connection, because I know a lot of film and television investors who come from real estate. So explain to me that process of how that works.
Which part?
How real estate can be used to finance film projects.
Well, I mean, look, if you have cash flowing properties, I mean, or you're selling properties, or you're in the business, in the there's so many ways in the ecosystem of real estate to make money, right? You don't have to be a developer, right? Some people in management, title companies, mortgage companies, there's so many ways, especially now with like fintech, right? There are companies that just create technology for management systems. So there's all kinds of ways that people are making money, but a lot of it is through ownership, and people have cash flowing businesses and they need to put their monies to work. And so for people who might just be used to the sort of sticks and bricks of it all,
Yes.
development and entertainment can look kind of sexy. But the interesting thing is there's a lot of parallels between the film business and development. Because for instance, a real estate developer is essentially like an executive producer of a film. An architect is sort of like the writer of the film. The construction company, the contractor is sort of like the director, right? And then even within the construction company, you have all the same trades. You have carpentry, you have electric, right? You've got design. So there's a lot of parallels between the two. In fact, ever since I was a kid, I would geek out at construction sites. And to this day, like, I will stop. I was doing it today. Like, I walk by, I'm just fascinated by buildings and how people have an idea, they put it on paper, and then you see it rise up from the ground, and in all different shapes and sizes and materials, and who's building it and what kind of machines. So the same thing is true on a film set. You have this idea, and then you got to build sets, right? You got to create these environments, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, it's all telling story.
Yeah.
Right?
And what I love about that, Malik, is that it goes back to what we were speaking of earlier about that self-empowerment, that you're creating an opportunity for yourself to be stabilized and have income, but then you also are putting yourself in a position where you're able to invest into other passions, which might be entertainment.
Yeah, more importantly, I think, is you putting people to work, and you're creating pathways for people, right?
That part.
Like, it's funny because a lot of the big developers, real estate is a capital intensive business. There's no way around it. You got to have money. And you have to get a lot of it, particularly if you're building, multifamily, hundreds of units, thousands of units. It's a lot of money. And most of us don't have access to it so readily. But what I've learned is, and this developer said this to me, he's like, Malik, you don't want to do development. It's too capital intensive, but there's huge opportunities in education. And although I had already been in the game, for 10 years, and when I say in the game, it's really having a seat at the table, watching, my partners who really raised the money and took the hits. And I got a couple of dollars in the deal and brought in some other, but nothing like, because you could, listen, man, you can have, and this happened, contractor putting cabinets or flooring, and there's a material called jetcrete, right, which is basically a sound absorption substance, so that especially if you're doing a building that's wood framed, right?
Yes.
And you can hear the sound, you hear the neighbors running, right? So there's this thing. So you can't put the flooring down until that dries, but the contractor puts it in and it hasn't dried, then they got to take it all up. And that one little mistake could cost you over $1 million, literally. And most people don't have the reserves, right, to take those kind of hits, or funding is supposed to come in for a certain portion of your construction, and it might be staggered, and someone could make a promise and then not come through, and the someone could be a huge bank, and they might want you to default on it so they can grab the property from you. So there's all kinds of shit that goes on that could really derail you.
Yes.
So that's why I think the education is really, really important. And for a lot of these big boys, they could sit at the table with their father, their grandfather. They're having these conversations on vacation, on their private plane. They bringing kids to the meetings. We don't have that.
Yes.
Right. That's not how most of us grew up. Most of us are the first generation in this game.
That's
so
right.
The education opportunities, I think, are really, really significant.
Let's talk a little bit more about this education, component, to what you're doing and how what you're doing in real estate is connecting to it.
Well, at the end of the day, right, most of us don't know what we don't know. Right. And so unless you go to school, and there's really only so even if like HBCUs as a example, right? There's no real estate development degree course at any HBCU right now. There's a couple that'll get you a certificate. There's a couple of real estate clubs at schools like FAMU, at Bethune-Cookman, and those were actually started by a friend of mine, John Crossman, who happens to be a white dude who's a real estate developer, but understood that this was a way to close the wealth gap quickly. And he's based in Florida. And so he's made it his mission to work with HBCUs to help level the playing field. And so there's that. But unless you come from a family or go to school, where do you have the exposure? Now we have more opportunities through social media and internet for people to learn things. But there is a huge opportunity to lift as you climb. And for me, as I learn and I grow, I've made it a mission to share what I'm learning. And you can do that in many different ways. Like I said, the Real Estate Mixtape is a doc series that I made specifically to screen from a grassroots perspective. This wasn't one of those things where I'm going to go to Netflix or some streamer and be like, hey, can you put my content on the air? Absolutely not. I'm not playing that game for you to tell me the value of what I have to offer. I know the value of it because I bring it to communities. Over 100,000 people have seen it. Wow. All over the country, right? And I'm okay with that because it's a very hands-on approach. People in the room. It could be 500, it could be 1,000, it could be 200, it could be 50, it could be 20. But what I know is that when we press play and you watch each episode is about 30 minutes, you're learning things. The synapses are firing, and you're like, oh shit, I didn't know that, or oh, that's how you do that. Oh, I didn't know what that was called. Right now, you've planted some seeds. Now, if you follow it up with a robust curriculum and then a real pathway, like this kid Dante, I told you. So Dante, went through, and the pilot only ran for 3 months. But as a result of that, Dante has a real job with a development company, right? And if we do that, create these pathways, then we can accelerate the learning and close the wealth gap, but we have to be intentional about it. Most development companies are just focused on their next deal, and that's fine. Along the way, you do meet people, and they tend to be more Black developers that I've experienced, or Latino, that are passionate about, like, all right, let's bring some people along. But because my background's in education and my background is also in the arts, it wasn't a stretch for me to say, how do I make this artful? How do I tell this story in a way? Here's a great anecdote. When I went to FAMU during homecoming just recently to screen my doc, we had the business school, the School of Architecture, and the theater kids, right? And even on the campuses, a lot of times the business school may not really interact with the School of Architecture.
Right.
Everyone's kind of doing their thing. But because this person showed up, oh, let's get the theater kids as well, right? If it was just developers, no one would have been thinking about these theater kids to invite them. So we end up having technical problems, and we can't screen the doc. So we just turned it into a panel, myself, couple of other developers that were invited. So it's a 2-hour session. We do the first hour, we break for a little lunch. I tell the theater kids, I say, listen, I want y'all to come up with an improv based on what you just saw for the first hour.
And that was off the cuff.
Off the cuff. But
Love
again,
that.
it's the educator in me,
Yes.
right? The artist in me. So now the theater kids, and because they're there with business, with the architect students and the business kids, and they're like, where do we fit in?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, this is how you fit in. Y'all just listen for an hour. Y'all go off, come up with an improv. And then when they came back in, I had 3 kids, 2 on either side of the room and 1 in the middle, shoot it on their phones. I said, now y'all going to edit this. Now you're going to make a little film. So now we go from talking about the business of real estate to these kids embodying it, repeating what they've learned in a theatrical, creative way. And now you captured it. And now you have content.
Mm-hmm. Man, it's just an amazing process. And I know a lot of people in entertainment that have transitioned into real estate, but not where you're affecting change, and then that you're still also pursuing your passion in entertainment as well, locking all 3 together.
Oh, I've got a scripted series coming set in the world of real estate.
I love that, man. What are some of your other philanthropic passions that you're working on now?
Well, this is really it. But I mean, I get hit up for all kinds of shit all the time. I mean, I support, especially this time of year, which is the gala season. So everybody and their mother is sending me a GoFundMe or here, can you donate here or there? And so, but a lot of it's still centered around housing and development. But I support all kinds of stuff in healthcare and, you know, education or human rights.
Why is that important to you, Ma?
Well, I'm in the give a fuck business. I just give a fuck about things other than myself. You know, it's just, I don't even think about it, you know, through that lens. Like, why is that important to me versus I just feel like, you know, this is how I move in the world. I think that you have to, especially now. You know, I mean, you know, the levels of apathy that we experience, you know, I just think that, you know, people aren't tapped in the way that they could be.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
So can we expect anything else from you coming up on the scripted side?
Yeah, I mean, I just did Blue Bloods. There's a film called Love After the Holidays that I'm a producer on, working on a distribution deal for that. Like I mentioned, you know, my series, we hope to go into production in 2024. So working on that. And then, you know, there's some film stuff bouncing around that, you know, but it has to kind of work in the schedule. You know, this other stuff has kept me pretty busy. And yeah, I think I'm just in a whole different mindset these days. I mean, I still love storytelling, and I actually appreciated it more when I'm on set now, right? Because I could spend so much time in this business head that it's good to be an artist still, right? I did my one-man show, Harlem to Hollywood, this summer up in Martha's Vineyard. Been in talks with Audible, looking to, you know, do an audio version of it, and we want to film it. So more than anything, it's about the things that I own, that I control, that I've created, that I'm really interested in. And I know that people appreciate the work I do as an actor and go, hey man, I want to see you in more stuff. And, you know, I appreciate that. But, you know, I'm certainly not waiting on someone to decide that they want me in their stuff.
Love that. Love that.
You know?
Yeah. Malik Yoba, where can everyone find you on social media, and where can they find out more about all of your endeavors?
You can always follow Yoba. Well, my name on social. Someone hacked my Facebook, so that's a wrap.
Okay.
Instagram is mainly where I'm at. Twitter. I think they took my check away because I don't post on Twitter a lot. The blue check.
Right.
I saw that the other day. I'm like, word? They were but yeah, and then you can go to yobadevelopment.com to find out some stuff. But yeah, and then just keep your eyes peeled because we'll be pushing some more content out.
Love it. Malik Yoba, this has been just really, really fantastic, man. Thank you for sharing your insight and your passion. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's good to see your face and not just a text.
Right.
It's been a long time. It's been a
Yeah.
long time, brother. But
Yes, absolutely.
I'm glad you're doing this. And I saw Tavis actually in Houston in August, I think. So I hadn't seen him in forever.
Yes.
So it was good to see him. But yeah, man, we out here.
Appreciate it.
Be sure to follow me, Keith Underwood, at Mr. Keith L. Underwood on IG. You can also follow me on FB at Keith L. Underwood. And you know you gotta follow Black in the Green Room at Black in the Green Room across all platforms. Until next time, this has been Black in the Green Room.